had the absolute pleasure of voicing the trailer for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom last year with Nintendo. It was like literally a dream come true. And in the session, we were doing a bunch of takes, and then they said to me,
So now it's time we discuss. I have Gina Scarpa with me, and it's time we discuss what it's like being a competitive gamer and a professional voiceover artist. Gina, thank you for joining me today.
oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
I am excited too. I know very little about competitive gaming. I know about its existence. Earlier in 2024, I spoke with Titus Walker. He was the founder of the Ultimate Endgamers League, and I got some background on that. But other than that, I have pretty much no knowledge. So I'm very curious, from your experience, what's it like being a competitive gamer?
Well, I grew up playing video games. I mean, I'm not gonna date myself, but I played the original NES system, like all the Mario games, Legend of Zelda, loved Tetris. That's like one of my favorite games ever. And I always thought I was good at games because I guess I thought I was pretty good at Nintendo games. But there's a whole other world when I discovered competitive games, which I would say is about 8 years ago at this point. I think the first one I started playing was Call of Duty, and that sort of ventured over then into Fortnite and other shooter type games like Valorant and CSGO, and then discovered card games. So like competitive card games like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, I got really into. So I don't know, there's something about competitive games that I really like. I'm a competitive person. So, but I feel like I'm in the minority. I'm like an older female that plays these kinds of games, and I feel like a unicorn sometimes. I'm like a mythical being out there all by myself.
That is really cool. So I'm assuming when it comes to the video games, I'm assuming most of it is done online. Is any of that done in like these big rooms? What's that like?
When I was playing Magic the Gathering, I mean, I still do play. I play online on MTG Arena, but I was playing quite a bit in person. So I was playing at local game shops. I went to pretty big competitions, either, maybe like through the state, or there were more national type ones that I would go to. So that was really fun. Everything else I do completely online. So I just play in online lobbies with random people. Some of them are nice, some of them maybe not, but I usually turn off voice chat so I don't need to hear what everyone's saying all the time.
How did you get started with this? You said you grew up with the different Nintendo games, which I respect. I love all
Yeah.
that. But how did that transition into your first competitive game? How did that work?
So honestly, I mean, like I said, I played video games like all through my childhood, teen years, and adult life. It's something I continue doing through all the iterations of Nintendo. Like the GameCube is my favorite system, but I play like, DS and things like that as well. So, I would say about 8 years ago, I think I went through, I would say, one of the toughest times in my life. I went through a depression and some health issues, and I was really, I don't know, just sort of going through it. And at that time, I discovered it was Call of Duty and actually Overwatch at the same time. And I don't know, I found it to be super therapeutic. It's kind of funny because it's like super competitive, sometimes toxic, stressful. But I don't know, there's something about it that I really gravitated towards. So the first Call of Duty game I played was Black Ops 3, and have been playing that ever since. And yeah, I don't know what it was. I felt more complicated, obviously more complicated than like a Mario game, but yeah, I don't know. I really gravitated towards it, and I enjoy it quite a bit.
When I think of competitive gaming, I automatically assume there's money involved. Are there competitive gaming groups where it's like, no, it's just the sheer competition, or more so, no, once you really get into it, money's involved?
For Magic the Gathering and playing in tournaments and things like that, there is sometimes money on the line, or there's prizes. So you might win like, packs of cards or things like that, or promo, cards, or game card sleeves or things like that. Online, it's more, I mean, there are ones for sure for money, but it's more about your rank in the game. So playing ranked and trying to get a higher skill level and things like that. So I'd say that's like the main thing that people play for. Certainly people play for money, but I think it's more for like the prestige of doing well in these kinds of games online, your status.
So I'm going to date myself here. So what you just said kind of reminded me of the old arcade games where you might go and you get a certain score or whatever, and at the end when someone dies, like you run out your lives, and you see the top 10 or whatever people it is, and if you're lucky, you might be able to put your initials in there, your
Oh yeah.
letter initials. So it almost reminds me of that. So what happens when you get to a certain rank, you're wherever you are, and then you walk away for a day or two or a week or something like that? Do you ever come back and it's like you've been knocked down and it's like, I got to get back up there? Like, how does that work?
There are certain games where if you don't play for enough period of time, you start to go down in your rank. But a lot of them have implemented measures where it will sort of hold your rank until the end of a season. Even if you reach a certain threshold, like there's bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and it continues from there. But let's say you hit like gold, whatever, gold one, it'll hold your spot so that you don't go back down. Because a lot of people were saying it felt bad to get to a certain rank. And then you keep playing, you lose a game or two, and you're right back in silver. So that doesn't feel great afterwards. So there are games that will maintain your rank, which is nice. But typically, games will reset sometimes every month, sometimes a couple times a year, sometimes once a year. So it just depends on the game.
Is there any kind of consistency between the games like that? Like if they reset, say 4 times a year, it's always like season based, or is it like very random? Like this one might reset in January, the next one might be May, and they both reset once a year. What's that typically like?
Yeah, so like in card games like Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering, they reset every month. So you push to get as high as you can, and then the first of the month it resets and you start all over again. In a game like Hearthstone, they give you bonus, we call it bonus stars, but like bonus points if you get wins, so you can kind of climb back up quickly, so it doesn't feel like a grind every month. Another game that is one of my favorites, League of Legends, used to reset your rank every year. Then it was twice a year. Now it's 3 times a year. So games are constantly evolving and changing, and it's kind of hard to keep track of everything because besides the fact that you might play ranked, every game often has a battle pass where you play the game and you get rewards as you go, but you want to complete the battle pass because at the end is probably the best reward of all. So you're constantly paying into getting battle passes, trying to play the game, trying to rank up. So it's hard to split your time sometimes, and I do tend to jump around a bit depending on who's got the best battle pass of the month.
So you talk about putting money in. How often is it that you come out making money from this? Is that possible at your level, or not so much? It's more about having fun and the
Yeah. Yeah, it's
okay.
more about having fun, and it is a lot of money. I feel like, when we were growing up, like a game cost what it cost. It was, $40 and that was it, and that's how much the game cost. A lot of games now are free to play, but they have microtransactions. And so you might be spending money on, again, battle passes. You might be spending money on skins or cosmetics in the game, and things like that. So, a free game easily turns into spending hundreds of dollars on a game. It's crazy. And a game like Magic the Gathering is always putting out new sets, and so if you want to play in the standard format, you're constantly needing to buy in and get new things. So there are certain games, I guess, like Magic is sort of a good example, I guess, where you could kind of win prizes back and I guess make something back. But I would say most people out there are playing because it's fun, because it's their hobby, it's competitive. But, I think very few people make it to that level where they're playing for like actual money on the line. There are some local competitions or online competitions through Discord that people can do, and the payouts like, I don't know, $100, $500 or whatever. But if you think about how much people really spend in games, I don't know who's making money besides like the pros and the streamers.
And how difficult is it to get to that level, do you think, from your experience, to be that professional level where you can really make something out of this? Is it super difficult? What's that like?
I think just from my experience of playing these games and then watching quite a bit of streamers, pro players and YouTube content creators, especially ones that are performing at a super high level, like most of them, it's like that game is their game. They're not necessarily people who kind of jump around from game to game. If they're, super high elo or super high rank in League of Legends, they're playing, 10 games a day. Every game is 30 to 40 minutes, so it's like you gotta just kind of eat, sleep, and breathe it and want to get that high rank. And so, you have the people that are playing ranked because it's fun and competitive, and then you have people that are really trying to grind. You got to know the game inside and out. There's always balance changes and patch updates, and so you got to stay on top of that as well. And so there's so many things that you need to do in order to reach that high level. It is definitely about your talent in the game, but I think it's really about that commitment as well, which you don't see from everybody. I think a lot of people just kind of want to play what they want to play when they want to play it, and maybe not everyone has it in them to reach that super high level.
Okay. Now, what about at the smaller kind of local level? You talked about that a little bit. What are how common are those where you might be able to, the grand prize is a few $100s or something like that? Are those fairly common, or they're kind of rare too?
No, I mean, they're common. You can definitely find sites and, Discord channels that are running competition. So if someone was really interested in it, it's definitely easy to do. I mean, definitely in a game like Magic the Gathering, there's local game shops all over every state where you can find something going on and you can, play in those kinds of tournaments. But especially online too. Like I think, especially since the pandemic, it's just people have made a bigger effort to make those things accessible to everyone. So you can always find something. If that's really what you want to do, you can always find that.
Wow. Okay. It's so fascinating. It's so outside of my world.
It was outside of my world too, but now it's like this is, when I'm not doing voiceover, I always joke, when I'm not doing voiceover, I'm playing games and people are like, ha ha ha. I'm like, oh no, but I literally mean it. I mean, pretty much, every second I'm not in the booth, if I'm not like stuffing snacks in my face, I'm playing video games. That's pretty much it.
Now, when it comes to the different games, are there different different skill tiers that games are broken down into? Where it's like you can, if you're playing Call of Duty, for instance, they have like different levels within that of skill, where it's like you can still be playing against people on your skill level, or is it just kind of like the luck of the draw?
So a lot of times if you're playing normals, there's normals and then there's ranked. If you're playing normals, you probably are going to find a wider skill gap of people, especially if they're in a party together online. Like I might be playing with people that are way better than me, in my group of friends. And so we go on and then I'm playing with people that are at a higher level because my friends or the people in my party are at a higher level too. When you're playing in ranked, you do tend to be within, a group of people that are of similar skill to you. However, there's, something that runs rampant in the world of online competitive gaming, which are called Smurfs, where players are not the blue Smurfs that we knew growing up, but but Smurfs meaning they're really high level players who make low level accounts to, do really well against low level players, or maybe they're trying to prove that they can climb very easily, or, there's a lot of different reasons. Maybe they got banned because they were being toxic in chat. So they make a new account, but they're really a high level player. And so you're running into them in like a bronze and silver lobby where you're expecting, people that might be kind of at your skill level. You're like, well, this person's really good. Like, what's going on here? So you should be facing people, in competitive modes that are of similar skill than as you.
Okay. Okay. Now, earlier you talked about, it could be borderline toxic at times. What's the social component like? So when you said that, I immediately thought of like, and again, dating myself here, like the early internet when you go into chat rooms and invariably you have someone that would be like flaming other people or something like that.
Absolutely.
So is the competitive gaming kind of like that too, where you get a lot of that, or is it a healthy mix between, or is that rare? What's the negative side like?
I mean, you definitely have to have really thick skin to play these games with voice chat on because, there's people who flame based on what you're doing in the game, which I try to be very nice, and that's not really my style. But it's like I understand it, but it's like you could sort of understand, like, the game's not going well, someone's frustrated, maybe it gets the best of them. But then there's people that just say comments about, you as a person, or, I mean, just really like harsh things that I think, might be hard for people to deal with. There's like all kinds of, language and inappropriate comments and things like that. But for me, what I found is, turning it off for a lot of games is really helpful. And then every now and then, you do run into people that are just chill and nice. I find that a lot of the chill, nice people probably tend to be quieter, and they're just kind of not, like they're not getting into the lobby of a game being like, hey, everyone, like, how's it going? Like, because you're just often going to be met with, you know, an attitude or some kind of negative comment. But I think it's an issue that games are trying to consistently work on. There's often features in games. I mean, every game I can think of where you can report someone, they can get banned, they can get chat banned where they can't type at all, they can get voice banned where they can't speak at all, or they can get completely banned where they're going to have to make a new account. Or something like that. So I know that game companies are definitely concerned about it and they have been making efforts towards it. But yeah, you do run into quite a bit of negativity. And so you can either let it, kind of taint the experience of the game, or you can tune it out, or, things like that. But it can be hard sometimes.
Gina, let's take a second. Let's talk about you as a voiceover artist. Now, I had Pam Wood on the show earlier in 2024. Is also a voiceover artist, and she primarily does narrations for ebooks. So
Yeah.
let's talk about you and your catalog. As a voiceover artist, what are you typically doing at this point in time?
I primarily book commercial work. I would say this year it's easily, 60% of my income overall. I do quite a bit of commercials recently I've voiced with Instacart, Uber, AT&T, Walgreens, John Deere, Enfamil, like baby formula, Vistaprint. So I love doing commercial, but I also do quite a bit of video games. And for me, that's been amazing because it ties right into this passion of mine. And so I've been in The Walking Dead, Genshin Impact, Fortnite, Stormgate, which came out earlier this year. And so that's been really, really cool. And then on top of that, I do e-learning, corporate narration for companies. The one thing I really don't do is audiobooks, just because they're so props to Pam because they're super time consuming. And I kind of have a joke with myself that I like to do audio that's 5 minutes or less, unless it's a video game, if I can help it.
So let's talk about, wow, geez, which one do we want to talk about? Let's stick with the video games. How
Sure.
did you get started as a voiceover artist with video games?
It's not easy. I mean, I coach people as well, and I get, of course, people come to me and they want to do animation, anime, and video games. Like, who wouldn't want to do those things? It sounds so fun, but it's extremely competitive and very hard to get into. So I did quite a bit of coaching in the world of character voiceover. I did demos that were expensive and but worth it. And then I had agents that were bringing me those types of opportunities, and I was marketing myself. My background's in marketing, my degree's in marketing, so I feel like it really gave me an advantage in voiceover. So some of the games that I have booked, I booked myself. Some of them came through my agents. And but the first one I booked was a virtual reality or a VR game called Eye of the Temple. And it was between me and one other woman for the lead role. And I messaged the developer and I was like, I saw some of the models of the game because he was solo developing it for 5 years. I was like, it's literally incredible. And I really meant it. I was like, if you don't pick me, like, fine. But I just want to tell you, like, this is amazing. And he was saying like that my passion for the game or, for gaming in general really pushed him over the edge. And then booking that game led to doing at this point over 20 games. So it's really, it's the thing that always excites me the most, I would say, but I do love all of voiceover. It's been the best decision I ever made for sure, career-wise.
Let's talk about that. So you went to school for marketing, and I think it's safe to assume that, well, maybe not, because you said you have an agent now. How important was your formal education in becoming a voiceover artist?
Well, it's funny because I went to right out of high school, I went to college, but I had my son also right out of high school. I'm a former teen mom, and so I was trying to raise my son at 18, go to school. I got an internship at a radio station, which I was super excited about, and something had to go, and so it was going to be school. So I left school and ended up working for many years, and went back to school in my early 30s and got my degree in marketing. And I graduated with honors. And for me, it was a really big accomplishment personally. But when I graduated, I was working in a family business. And I was like, why did I do this? Like, I don't need a degree to work with my parents. You know what I'm saying? Like, but they retired and I could have taken over the business. I didn't really want to do that, much as I loved working with them, but a family business without the family just doesn't feel the same. So I sort of switched gears and started looking at voiceover, and actually the degree ended up being incredibly helpful because my specialization working in marketing was SEO. So that's not something that everyone knows how to do or wants to know how to do. So my website ranks super well. My sister has a master's degree in English and she works with me. So now her degree comes into play too, because she's a phenomenal writer. And that's really given me an advantage. So what I often coach about in voiceover is, yes, how to, do voiceover and get into the industry, and sometimes script coaching, but typically I tend to coach on the business side because I feel like that's where there's the greatest opportunity for people.
So you mentioned that you had an agent. At what point did you decide to get an agent? Was that fairly early on? Did you hit like a ceiling and you said, I can't do this on my own, I need to get someone? How did you jump from not having an agent to having an agent?
Yeah, so I started doing voiceover in 2014, and I was just doing it from home with a poop microphone through Fiverr and Upwork. And those sites have their purpose, but it is, there are people who make really great money on Fiverr. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the site because of how they started, where you literally had to charge $5 for a project. And now people can charge all kinds of things as freelancers. But I was sort of lone wolfing it from 2014 until like 2019, even 2020. And it wasn't really until the pandemic started where my sister took a class online. She's an actor in New York. And she was like, I took this class in voiceover and I just feel like you should try to do this at like a bigger, higher level. So I started taking classes and started joining some casting sites that had better paying projects. And two of the projects that I booked early on were with L'Oreal and VSP Vision Insurance. Then I went to a workshop with agents online and read for them, and an agent in New York picked me up in the fall of 2020. I booked my first national commercial at the end of that year, and everything as we headed into 2021 just absolutely took off. So I have agents in New York and LA. I have a team, a management team. I don't know how I became this person that has like a team of people around me, but here we are.
How does that typically work from a financial perspective? Do they take it? So if you get X amount of dollars for a particular project, and it comes in through your agent, do they get a percentage cut of that, or is it, do you have to pay them so much per year? What is typical?
So typically agents will take a percentage of what you book through them, and it's built into your agreement with them. You always know what it's going to be beforehand. It's usually like standard. Like they'll say like 10% is, pretty standard. Sometimes even 20% for non-union projects. And then a management team, there's different agreements you can make with them, but I would say typically like then you're giving them a percentage of everything you make because their job is to guide your career and take it to a higher level. So you have people that you're paying every month or whatever, every project, but they're bringing you opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise be able to have. Like there's just certain things in this industry, in video games and animation, in commercial, that like you're just not going to be able to get yourself. You need an agent or somebody advocating for you and bringing you those opportunities. So for me, when I joined up with with agents and then now my management company, it really elevated my career both from like a project standpoint and from a financial standpoint as well. Definitely great decisions. Lone wolfing maybe has its benefits, but there's something to be said for a team of people around you that really believe in you and want to help you get where you're trying to go.
You can do this anywhere. You don't have to be in a big city. You can have your team anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
You can do this anywhere, right?
That's the best part for me. I'm not a traveler. And in 2021, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune liver disease. So now I really don't want to go anywhere for the most part. I kind of like to just be close to home. And what was, something nice about the pandemic, which is like a weird sentence to say, but it really blew the doors wide open for voiceover. And there's so many things that you can voice from home. So I work completely from home. Me and my dogs are just having a great time in my pajamas every day. And I love it. I collaborate with people all over the country and around the world. And I also, coach, especially kids and teens. I coach. There's a girl who I work with in New Jersey who's playing the lead in a new Apple TV animated series, and she did the whole thing from home. I coach another girl in St. Paul, Minnesota, who guest stars on several Disney Junior shows right from home. And so it's been really nice to, see other people getting those opportunities. And there are things that still need to be in studio. But I would say the large majority of work out there is remote when you have a great setup, a great booth at home, and a great sound.
Let's talk about the coaching for a second. How important is that as part of your business portfolio? If someone is doing voiceover, they will do it professionally. Is it also important that they're coaching people as well to make up for quiet times? Or is this just something you happen to pick up because, hey, why not?
My parents ran a nonprofit theater in Connecticut, and I was the education director. So working with kids and teens, especially in an educational environment, is really my background for many years. So I just kind of naturally came over into voiceover, but then like adults started wanting my help too. And I was like, okay, sure. But I always joke with people like, I don't need the money for coaching. I just like to do it. But it's like, I feel like it's the Italian in me. I want to help everybody. And I'm like, listen, if I can't feed you, let me at least get you going in voiceover. You know what I'm saying? I feel like Italians get it. So I'm a real empath. And so, there are times when I think to myself, well, I really don't have the time or the capacity to be doing coaching. But then someone asks for my help and I just can't help myself. I think that there are voice actors out there who certainly do coach and teach to supplement their income. And I know, that's totally understandable. Voiceover ebbs and flows. You never know when you're going to book something or get paid. So I don't blame people for doing that. I genuinely just do it because I like helping people. And I also call myself the no BS coach because there's a lot of BS out there. Like people tell you can make money in your pajamas, with your USB microphone reading books. And I'm like, no, you cannot. You could, but it's going to be I guess, ridiculously hard. Like there's no way, so I try to tell people, look, this is, in my experience, this is how it is, and hopefully that's kind of helpful and you go into it with a, I guess a no filter perspective.
That is really, really cool. Okay, so earlier you talked about unions in passing. Do you are there certain jobs that you have to turn down because you're not part of a union, or you can only take jobs because you're in a union? What does that look like for the industry from your experience?
Yeah, so in voiceover, the union is SAG, which is the same as on-camera actors, right? So Screen Actors Guild. So yeah, there are union jobs, and there's non-union jobs and there's union jobs. So if you're union, you can't be voicing non-union jobs, specifically in the world of commercial, especially. But if you're union, you're only doing union jobs. If you're non-union, you can do, of course, non-union jobs, but you can also get you can do paperwork so that you're able to do union, and you can join the union as well. It's definitely a personal choice for people. Some people choose to stay union, some people choose to go union, and then there's a status in between those two things called financial core, where you pay your dues to the union, you leave basically, and you are able to do both. But it's a very complicated and hot button issue within the industry. It's like a personal choice for everyone. But to answer your question, yes, there are things that are specifically union, and you would need to be union, but you should be able to audition for it and get the paperwork to do it if that's the case.
All right. Okay. Real quick, one more question for you.
Yeah.
AI, how is that impacting you as a voiceover artist? Is that having a big effect, not effect? What's it like for you?
Oh my gosh. I feel like, in the world of voiceover, like people are always talking about it every day. They're like freaking out, running around like Chicken Little, and I don't know. I'm like, maybe I'm just, I don't know, like not that concerned. I know that it's coming and I know it's continuing to evolve, but I feel like there's just certain things about voiceover that still require a human being. And I don't know when that's going to change. And a really good example I give, which, we can relate it back to gaming, is I had the absolute pleasure of voicing the trailer for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom last year with Nintendo. It was like literally a dream come true. And in the session, we were doing a bunch of takes, and then they said to me, you know that feeling when you're playing an open world game and you see something in the distance and you kind of lean forward on the couch and you're trying to figure out what it is and you want to go explore it? I'm like, yeah, of course. And they're like, okay, that's the direction. Do the read. And I'm like, see, now that's not something AI can understand, because they know what to say, but they never know why they're saying it. And until that comes up, I'm not going to worry about it too much. So, AI does come for some lower level jobs in voiceover, like things that can easily be replaced. Sometimes it's audiobooks and that's not a lower level job, but I'm saying, like, maybe people want to use it for that, for e-learning, but the backlash on the internet has been pretty big when companies try to use AI. I think Coca-Cola tried, like, maybe a Christmas ad, and everyone was like, what is this abomination? So, I think that companies are surprised to learn that actually Gen Z doesn't like it as much as they thought they would, that they are really more like us, like, like a Gen Xer, they want to be heard and felt and represented. And so they're not trying to have AI, and it's just not going well for them. So I don't worry about it, but I also don't worry about the aliens in the ocean or whatever the government's talking about this week either. Like, I'm just like, whatever, like, I'm just trying to pay my bills and live my life.
I spoke with Charles Brakefield. He was an author, and he had a very similar take on AI. He talked about a voiceover artist that he uses and all the things that this artist can do. And he said AI, like, nowhere even close, nowhere even close.
No, it's really hard. They also like don't pronounce things correctly, and like it's almost impossible. It's like you're trying to tell it how to pronounce something. It's like it's almost more hassle. Like, yeah, it's cheaper, but it's like so many clients have come back to me or to other people that I work with, other voice actors, where they're like, we tried AI and it's just like it's terrible. So I know that it's constantly evolving, but honestly, even for AI roles in video games, like, we're still voicing them. So I'm not too worried. But I am keeping a careful eye on it. And the National Association of Voice Actors, or NAVA, is doing quite an incredible amount of work in Washington, speaking in front of Congress and making sure that we have the protections that we need. So I definitely appreciate their efforts, and I'm always trying to stay up to date on what they're doing as well.
Gina, I am running a little short on time, but one thing I like to do whenever I'm speaking with someone, I like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in, more about their business. So if there's something specific you'd like to talk about. The floor is yours.
Thanks. I mean, if people want to hear more about my voiceover work, my website is just ginascarpa.com. I also have a studio called Positive Voices, and our website is positivevoicesct.com. We do voiceover casting, we do directing, audio production, writing, and we also do educational programs. And then if someone's looking for a cause, especially in relationship to voiceover, definitely NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors. Again, they're just doing incredible work to make sure that, not just we as voice actors are protected, but people in general. Like the fact that anyone could take your voice and make you say or do anything is kind of scary. So they're working on it all the time. And they're all like, the board is full of super successful voice actors themselves who are taking the time to be out in the world and talking to important decision makers about how we can have better protection. So checking out NAVA would be incredible.
That is awesome. I'll make sure I get all of those links from you. I'll put them in the show notes, in the description of the show. I'll put them on the website. They'll be all over the place. So when people are trying to find that information, they can easily find it. Gina, it's been absolutely awesome having you on Time We Discuss. We learned what it's like to be a competitive gamer and a voiceover artist.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.